Hello, my name's Nikki Soul. I am the director for England and Wales programs. So I'm in charge of our IFSA in London program, our direct enrollments, any custom programs that come here from other universities in the UK in the US. I've been in the role since December. I used to work for study abroad in other capacities, but right before I started this job, I was a professor at a UK university and really missed study abroad. So I decided to come back and found this position, which I'm really enjoying a lot just because I get to see students, hopefully you all, this summer or this fall. But it's really lovely to go into the office and be able to chat with students and see how they're enjoying their time in London and the UK as well. Um, so I wanted to talk to you a bit about some of the things specific to IFSA in London and specific to IFSA and the program that you're looking at. So we'll talk a bit about the staff, the services that IFSA London offers, our location, some of the classes that we're offering both this summer and in the fall, the activities that we offer, what life is like in London, and then obviously if there are any questions that you have as well, please do let us know. So meet the staff. That person on the left is me. And then we also have the academic programs manager, Mina. She's actually in charge of ensuring that all of our IFSA in London things are happening up to date. She's the one who does all the course registrations and things like that. So she's kind of your personal tutor, which is the equivalent of, I guess, your supervisor. While you're here in London. So if you ever have any questions, we're the two people that you'd most likely interact with. We do have an operations manager who's starting in May, and then we have 4 student experience coordinators. So these fine staff are, I think, well, the first 3 that we actually have pictures of, Danelle, Haley, and Kirsten, they're all just finished up their master's degrees at UK universities, and they plan all of the events that happen around in our office. We just did a big weekend in Wales, which we'll be offering in the fall as well. So they coordinated all of that. And then Monica, the reason that we don't have her pictures, she just started on Monday. So we're really lucky to have her, and she works with our Oxford students as well. So she is learning the ropes right now, and I will get a picture of her as soon as I can. So that's our staff. It's pretty small, but we really enjoy each other's company, and we really love working with students. So we're really just grateful to have the opportunity to kind of foster and shepherd students along at their time when they're abroad with us. And some of the services that we offer, and this is very broad and general, it can get very specific, but we're kind of your guides to life in England, in the UK. If you're going somewhere, we're good to ask for just advice, or if you're like, what's a really good Indian restaurant? I can be like, and we'll all tell you the same thing because we all love it, Dishoom. So we're the ones who are like, yep, this is what you want to do, or have you tried this area, or oh, you're looking for this sort of thing. You can ask us, and if we don't know the answer, we'll ask someone else in the office, and they'll probably know. We also offer academic guidance and planning. As I mentioned, Mina is our academic programs manager, so she can help you with that. Your transcript support, making sure that your transcripts are all set up to transfer back to your home university. Any sort of physical and mental health and support and emergency support. So you do get insurance through IFSA, and we can help you coordinate if you're like, oh, I need to see a doctor because my tooth hurts or whatever it is. We can help you with that whole process. So yeah, and then if anything serious were to happen, obviously we have that emergency support as well. So yeah, basically, we're just kind of there to ensure that your time in England and in London are as great as it can be, and that you're supported and that you're safe. So London, not to scale this picture, but I thought it was a lot of fun, which is why I chose it. So here's kind of central London in terms, and we're actually here where this bag is. So this is the Mayfair area of London. The US Embassy used to be located here on Grosvenor Square, which is just around the corner from our office. Hyde Park is just a couple minutes walk away, and then Oxford Street, the very famous shopping street, is just about 2 minutes away. I'll show you in the next slide what I mean by that. But you can see that we're pretty centrally located. We're right next to the Bond Street Tube Station, and on Oxford Street. So here's Bond Street. Here's the Bond Street tube station. There are a bunch of different entrances, which is why there's all these different places. We actually just opened up the Elizabeth, well, I didn't do it, but they just opened up the Elizabeth line. So that's right here as well, which is really centrally located so that you can go straight from Heathrow and come to our doorstep, basically. So as you can see, we're just a 2-minute walk away here on South Moulton Street. This is a pedestrian street. So here's a picture of it. We're on this other side of the street to the right, but this is what we look on from our offices and our classrooms. It's a really lovely space simply because there aren't any cars going in and out. And there are a lot of little cafes and shops and things like that. And we're right around the corner from Claridge's, which is a very famous hotel. So yeah, it's very centrally located. Oxford Circus is about 7-8 minute walk. That's my tube stop that I take. So it's a great place to be. Oh, I don't know if I shared my, I'm going to end this just for a moment because I don't know if I shared my sound with you all. Peter, can you hear that? Nope. Let me end that real quick. I'm going to start sharing with you all again, but this time I'm going to include the sound. One of the intricacies of Teams. So let's try that again. You hear that? Yes. Very short and sweet. And there is more space in the actual center. The reason that we just showed that is just the other space would be our offices, and there's a basement space that has another lounge that isn't used very much, I think, because it's in the basement, but it's actually very lovely. So I don't know why people don't use it. So our summer classes, as I said, we're moving into classes now. For the first session, we're going to be offering urban identities, which is actually really interesting. I said at one point when I started the position, I was like, oh, I'd love to teach that class. But some of the co-curriculars that happen with this class is they do a lot of city walks around to different parts of London to talk about things like gender, race, class. So this past term, this current spring term actually, they've done walks to the City of London, from South Bank to Covent Garden, Marylebone, which is the neighborhood next to ours, and then Mile End to kind of just explore the different ideas of the suffrage movement, for instance, for women's suffrage, race, and I know the class differences, particularly during like the Victorian era. So really interesting stuff. And during the second session, fantasy in the real world, and this is looking at fantasy literature through a sociological lens. So taking some of the ideas actually that you'll see in, I think, session 1 as well, and exploring the ideas. They look a lot at the Hunger Games. I think there's some Harry Potter and Amber Spyglass, things like that. But some of the co-curriculars they've done for this class this current spring is they went to an exhibition at the Science Museum that looked at science fiction, Voyage to the Edge of Imagination, which is very science fiction-y sounding. They also did an interactive workshop. One of the things with this class that they look at is fan fiction, which I think is really interesting and definitely very sociological. But they did an interactive workshop with Fandom Forward, which kind of is how fan fiction looks at some of the social change that could happen through fiction, which is really interesting. So one of the things with our IFSA in London classes is because you're in London, we want to ensure that you're engaging in London and engaging with the different things that are happening in London and how this ties to the ideas of the different classes. So it's a lot of fun, and some of the classes, for those of you who are looking at the fall, we have those two classes I just mentioned, but here are some of the other classes that are currently scheduled to run this fall. And for instance, with the contemporary British politics, they're actually going to the Supreme Court, UK Supreme Court next week, which is super cool. So that's one of the co-curriculars with that. Museum of the Mind, I think, for the psychology of crime and justice in the UK class. So you can see that they're very much trying to make sure that you're linking with some of the things that are happening in the UK. For Trin Start here, New Media and Behavior, they had a guest speaker from the Chief Marketing Officer at Marvel, which is super cool as well. So that's kind of the prompt that we give our lecturers of saying, make sure, tell us what you can do to engage the students with the material from the classes. And they really do step up and really do show students how these ideas are connected to the real world, which I really enjoy. And then, of course, activities, because half of studying abroad is, well, let's say part of studying abroad. You determine the percentages as your studies, but then there's also engaging and getting involved outside of class as well. And we try to do at least one activity a week, where we're definitely planning on a barbecue for 4th of July. You saw the patio in the video that we have. So I think the idea is that hopefully July 4th will be a sunny day. Well, you never know with the UK, but having a barbecue out there, enjoying each other's company. Buckingham Palace, which is open for tours in summer. I did that a couple summers ago, and it's really lovely to just kind of explore this royal palace. Unseen tours to some really cool, edgy stuff in terms of what they offer, of looking at London from different sides. I know that they do a tour about homelessness in London, and what are some of the ways that we engage with homeless people and their issues. So they really take some thought-provoking ideas and place them in the context of what's happening in London. Parliament, they're actually going to Parliament this weekend, but it's really lovely because you can actually go into Westminster Hall, explore, and if they have a public gallery that you're welcome to go into as well. We often try to do a West End play because you can't come to London and not try and go and see a West End play. This past spring, a couple weeks ago, they went to see Mamma Mia, but really it's just a matter of seeing what's out there, what's available, and deciding what we want to go and see. So we definitely always do that no matter what term it is, because there's always something good playing, and they're really, if you've been to Broadway, there's some really good productions as much in London. We've done a women's football match. So Arsenal, you've probably heard of, but not the women's side. And we unfortunately weren't able to get that, but we were going to have a sports reporter who talks about women's football because it's gotten a lot of press about how they are engaging the sport as well from that side. For those of you who are looking to come in the fall, one of the things that we offer is membership with the Students' Union at the University College London. And this is a really great way to engage with other students and students at a UK university. So basically what this membership involves is that it allows you to join any of the hundreds of student activities, student groups that they have. So anything from sports, we've had a student who joined the rowing team, to, if you're someone who's into chess, if you're someone into Harry Potter, there's probably a group for you to join, a student group for you to join. So we definitely recommend to students, we give you the membership and then you get to decide how you use it. But it is very much, we're hoping that you engage with that because it's a great way to get involved outside of the classroom with and meet people from the UK. I can't say enough about it. I think because I worked at a UK university before, I see the power of that because it's structured a bit differently in the US. Usually US universities and colleges have their own students union that's like a building and that has activities, and the students union in UK universities are actually separate from the university itself. So this gives you a real opportunity to just engage with students. We also do excursions. Our plan is to have an excursion for the summer, at least one per session. So we have Kent, the county of Kent, called the Garden of England, where we go to Leeds Castle, ironically not located in Leeds. And it's like a castle surrounded by a moat. We go to Canterbury and see the cathedral, and then finish the day off at the cliffs of Dover, which you can see here. And you can, if it's a clear day, see France on the other side of the channel. Also do a day trip to Brighton, which is a very fun seaside city. There's a lot to see there in terms of the history that they have. It's a very LGBTQ friendly city, and they also just offer a lot in terms of fun and quirky, and it's a different side of Britain than, let's say, the next one on our list, Windsor and Eton, which Eton you might have heard of. It's a very famous boys' college as in high school. So a lot of UK prime ministers have gone there, etc. In Windsor, obviously, where the castle is, the favored, what did our Welsh guide say this weekend? The favored residence of our late Queen. So it's a very lovely two towns right across a strip of water from each other, but we're going to go there this summer. And we'll also do that in the fall. We'll do our Wales trip again. And then we usually do another trip in the fall, day trip. I think this term we're doing Stonehenge and Bath, but there might be somewhere else that we go to. It just depends on what we decide on. I don't think we've decided yet what we want to do for that particular excursion. But those are all included in the fee. It's something that, we're just like, pack your toothbrush and let's go and have some fun. For the day trips, obviously, you don't need to pack your toothbrush unless you have onions or something at lunch. So life in London. There are over 200 languages spoken in London. It's a very diverse city. And I was just saying to Peter before we started this, I said, I don't know what to say about life in London because it's so different depending on where you go. There are 30, I think it's 31, 32 boroughs of London, and they each have their own character. You have Mayfair, which we're located in, and is very posh. But then you go to something like East London, and it's Shoreditch. It's very trendy and young. So Bloomsbury is where a lot of the universities are. So that's very kind of educational and younger. So when you think about London, it's hard to think about just one thing because they all have their kind of own communities, their own vibes, and depending on what your interest is, you can find what you're looking for when you're there. It's really easy to get around. The public transportation is super, super easy. You get yourself an Oyster card and you tap on to go on the tube, to go on the bus, to go on the overground, to go on the light rail, however you want to do it to get where you're going. And I think the fact they also have obviously the new bike scheme as well. Not new bike scheme, but it changes around a lot. But there's a bike scheme if you want to, get a bicycle to ride around. And there's a lot to explore for free. So I think that people often think, oh, well, I have to spend a lot of money. There's some places that, yes, you can spend money and you can, if you decide to, for instance, go to the Tower of London, which we do. So you might want to just wait till we say, hey, let's go to the Tower of London and we'll pay for it. But most of the museums are free. National Gallery, the British Museum. So it's really great that you can just say, I want to do something, and you just go and don't have to worry about having a lot of money on you. And there's just a lot to explore. So I think that, and what Peter and I had decided when we were talking about this at the beginning was it really just depends on what you want to find, how you want to get involved. If you're a theater person, there's plenty of theater. If you're someone who's into music, live music, if you're someone who's into sports, there's always sports going on. If you're someone who's into nature, there are tons of nature opportunities. If you're someone who's like, oh, I want to explore outside of London a bit, there are plenty of day trips, and you can always ask us in the office, what should I do? I want to go somewhere that's within an hour. So I think that that's kind of what I say when I say life in London. It is what you make of it. But if you have questions about that, obviously you can always ask as well. So that's kind of what I had prepared, but I just wanted to see if there are any questions from all of you in terms of what you're interested in knowing about.
While folks are gathering their thoughts and their questions, I was wondering if you could maybe give an idea to students of where they might be living in London and what that might look like in terms of getting from the student housing to the study center.
Yep. So for fall, we have somewhere called Lightfoot Hall. And if there are people frantically Googling right now, this is in Chelsea, which is also a very posh area. There's a show here, I don't know if it's popular in the US, called Made in Chelsea, which follows a bunch of young people around. But it's right next to the river. I'm actually going to see if I can Google a map of London for you. But it's twin en-suites. And ensuite, we mean by there's a bathroom included in the room space. So the rooms are it's kind of set up as kind of a flat situation in that you have, I think it's 8 rooms, and then there's a shared common space. There's a kitchen for you to use. One of the things that we provide is ensuring that you have kitchen supplies and bedding, so that you don't have to worry about, lugging a pot and pan and your pillow, unless you have a favorite pillow, with you to England. So for the summer, I will be honest, we have not yet secured that space. It will be within central London. So we very much want to ensure that you're not as there are different zones of London, that you're not beyond zone 2. We say zone 3, but usually zone 2 is we can still get good spaces and good things there, but it's a pretty similar setup no matter where you go. Our housing, what we want to ensure that you have access to a kitchen, access to, make sure you have the bedding that you need, and that you're located within, half an hour, I think, is our guarantee of the London Study Centre, which most people in the UK would love to have. My commute is an hour and a half, so I would definitely love to have that. Talk about do's and don'ts for packing. Definitely pack light. I think that oftentimes we think we need everything. And I always say when you're packing, pack what you think you're going to need and then cut it down by half, which most people are like, what? But remember, we have things like laundry here. We have things like stores. So if you realized, oh, I really should have packed more socks, we can help you find where you can get more socks. One of the things that we also recommend is ensuring that you have any medication that you need when you come, making sure you have a supply for that. You do have insurance for medical needs, but it just makes it so much easier if you talk to your doctor beforehand to say, I'm going to be gone for 3 months, I'm going to be gone for 6 weeks, however long it is, so that you have that. Do's and don'ts for packing, anything else? And obviously, like me, I have a favorite pillow, so I always make sure I travel with that. Any other specific questions about packing or anything else? But I think that might have answered your question.
The only thing I would add in terms of clothing is I think layers could be good just because the weather can be somewhat unpredictable, even in summertime. So you might have days that are a little bit chillier than you might be used to, depending on where you live for summertime. But then it can also get pretty hot sometimes in London. So I would just think about that as well, that there might be some variation in the temperature. So bringing some layers could be a good idea.
There are some military bases in the UK. They're not close to London. And if you're not an actual either active duty or assigned to the UK, I don't think you can get onto those military bases. You happen to be talking to an Army brat. Both of my parents were in the Army, so I'm pretty familiar with this. But the closest 2 Army bases that you might have access to are in Lakenheath and in Mildenhall, if you want to look those up. I'll write those down for you. What is the class schedule like? Is it every day or once or twice a week? So currently what we work on is once a week for each class. It might be that you have, usually it is 1 class a day. We try and keep it so that at least one of your days, either Monday or Friday, are free, so that you're not necessarily Monday through Friday, but like either Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. We can't guarantee that, obviously, just because we don't know which classes everyone's going to take, but we do know that each class is at least once a week. It might be twice a week, but we're trying to stay away from that. We're trying to make it just once a week, and they're usually about 3 hours long. So there is a break built into that. We're not just saying you need to sit down for 3 hours and talk to us, or talk about this topic. We do try to ensure that you have that break built in, either to get a snack, comfort break, whatever it is.
Would that be the same in the summertime, that same class schedule?
I believe so. I'm not sure, though. I'd have to check with Mina about that. It looks like Kyla asked, towels aren't provided. That's the only sort of linen that we do not provide. However, packing a towel is a bit odd, so I'd recommend getting one when you get here. There are plenty of places close by that we can say, like there's the UK version of TJ Maxx, TK Maxx, it's the same company. You can get a towel for under 10 quid. 10 pounds, sorry.
And on the topic of housing, I did want to add that there is the option for both summer and in the fall to rank a choice between a single option or a shared option. Once you become an official student and then you make your way through the student portal, you'll be able to rank those choices. We base off any sort of fee off of the shared option. So if you do select the single option as your first choice, there will be a supplemental fee. But if you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to me because I'm the housing guy and Peter's the academics guy. So don't, you can send the study questions his way. I'll take the housing ones.
I see Angelica seems to be typing. That's a good question. So Angelica's asked if any tips for budgeting for groceries. Are prices similar to us, or do you find them more expensive? It depends. So I actually find that in the US, a lot of produce is actually more expensive than the UK. Um, it's it's also interesting, we're obviously all going through a lot of inflation. Prices have been increasing here as well as elsewhere. I just did my grocery shopping actually this morning, and I was like, oh, I used to not spend this much on one week of shop. But one of the things that I do is definitely, and one of the things I would recommend if you're sharing space is seeing if you can share expenses with cooking, with, if you're both drinking the same type of milk, or, things, butter, what does one person really need a huge block of butter? Or is that something that you could say, hey, can we share this block of butter? I know that some of my friends, when I was a university student here, what they did was they would actually do their big grocery shop together so that they could share the cost in that. So that's one thing I would definitely recommend. The other thing is just looking out for what are the best ways for what you want in terms of your food needs. So are you this type of person who's like, yep, I want to cook each night, I want to do big batch cooking, or I want to, do smaller meals. I'm someone who eats out a lot, because that's obviously going to affect the type of budget that you spend. But yeah, it really is just seeing what's best, knowing that if you go to a smaller corner store versus a larger chain store, it's going to be a bit more expensive and things like that. So we can always give you the names of, some of the bigger brand name stores here in the UK as well. Is Harry Potter Studio Tour still included in the summer session too? It could be. I think my staff is really jonesing to get out there again. So it is something that, well, actually, we haven't gone as a staff, but I know that a lot of us have already been. So we're like, oh, we need to take some students out there. So I think it is something that we have considered, because it's an amazing space to see, and it's an amazing tour. So yeah, I can put it down as an option.
I think it's mentioned specifically in the syllabus for the fantasy course. So I think that's been a popular question about the Harry Potter tour for that session.
Okay. When will the housing be final for the fall? Okay, so we already know the space for fall, like where you'll all be staying. It's that the Chelsea Lightfoot Hall that I mentioned. I'm not exactly sure when we would be doing housing. I think it depends on when, and Kevin might know here, when we finalize numbers and names and everything. So I'll send that over to Kevin.
Sure. So in the next couple of months, you'll be like completing the housing form, and then the England staff will finalize all of their allocations in the City of London. And then at the latest, you'll find out about your housing assignment in August, prior to leaving to your, study abroad adventure. We'll definitely let you know with some time so you can like get accustomed to what you need and ask any questions that we can forward onto the London staff. But it definitely will be a little bit of time since the fall term is in a couple of months. So it won't be soon, but it'll definitely be sometime in the summer.
I just wanted to point out that the work for housing is pretty extraordinary right now, just given how limited housing is in London. So Kevin and the staff in London are going above and beyond and doing everything they can, and amidst what could be described as chaos. So we thank them for all their hard work in securing the housing. So we're also kind of just at the whim of the market and what's available as well.
Angelica asked about booking flights to London, good airlines, when to book, etc. I think there's an old fable or old tale. I don't know if Peter and Kevin have heard that you're supposed to book on like a Wednesday morning or something like that. I don't. I think that's when they like release new fares or something. Usually you want to check farther in advance because the closer you get to a date, the more expensive it will get for flights. I recommend using a site like Kayak or something like that because what they do is they compare a lot of different sites and they'll tell you what different airlines are offering in terms of their fees. That said, excuse me. That said, I think that sometimes the airlines will have little deals on their own sites that they might not necessarily show on these broader sites that show you the comparison ones. In terms of good airlines, they all have their ups and downs and they all have their perks. And so it really just depends on what type of experience you're looking for. Because I think there's some low budget airlines that come here to the UK, but nothing I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah, it's just looking around. If you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to Kevin and Peter and just say, I found this, and they might say, don't fly that airline. But I don't know any off the top of my head that I'd be like, avoid it.
I will add that at some point in the summer, I will send you a newsletter with some like tips and tricks on where to book, what to book, what routes to consider depending on where you're coming from. Thankfully, London is such a big hub for travel and business that there's mostly direct routes coming out of whatever city in the United States. When it's a bigger city, I live in a city that I have to connect, I think, twice before I get to any sort of big city. So I'm one of the unlucky ones, but we'll give you some more information so you have something to consider when you do book.
Yeah. Kyla mentioned going to Stonehenge. That is something that is a possibility for us for a day trip, but there are options in terms of looking at day trips like that, simply because with Stonehenge, it's not a place you can easily get to on public transportation because it's out in the middle of nowhere. But usually what we'll do is and what other places do that offer like day trips is they'll go to Stonehenge and then they'll also go somewhere else like Bath, simply because it's close by and it has a lot of history to it as well. When do you estimate we will know about the housing situation for summer program? Oh, that's a good question, Asma. We're hoping to have it finalized in the next 2 weeks, simply because, we need to ensure that you all have housing. I think we're just waiting for what we think will be the final numbers for our students, so that we can say like, yep, we have this many students, and they can say, okay, we have this housing for you.
And on our end, we'll finalize those for the summer at the very latest in May, if not, or in late April.
And then Angelica has the last question about ordering textbooks for classes. I'm actually not sure about this. I don't know if Peter, if you know, because I think that we try very much in the UK to not have textbooks. And it might be that they're provided through the, Peter, do you know anything about this?
Yeah, well, at least for the fantasy and the real world class, because I'm just more familiar with that syllabus. It mentions reading excerpts from different books and some articles, but I didn't see any mention of, a specific textbook that would, need to be purchased. And I believe that all the classes use the Canvas learning management system. Is that right, Nikki?
And I'm actually online on both of those sites to see if there's like, you need to get this notebook, which I don't think there, or this textbook, which I don't think there is, but I'm just checking for you real quick.
So I would imagine that the readings would be made available online in digital form. So if you wanted a physical copy, I mean, you could go out and buy, the Hunger Games book if you prefer that. But my understanding is that the readings will be made available and there wouldn't be any big textbook purchases.
Yeah, so for the fantasy class, for instance, the texts they use are all obviously books. And I think that if there are other things, then they offer them they put them up on the Canvas site for the students to be able to use. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right information. So I'm just looking at these particular classes in terms of their texts. Yeah, that's what it looks like, because they haven't said you need to buy this textbook, which is kind of nice. My last question, we did that. Do we need to bring our laptops abroad for class? I would say yes. It just helps you with writing, with whatever you need to do. So yes, I would definitely say bring your laptop if you have one.
Would students be expected to bring it to class, or could they keep it in their housing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I usually see students bringing it to class, but, and I'm going to sound really old when I say this, I don't know how students take notes these days, because I'm very much a pen and paper person. So I take notes on pen and paper. Sometimes I'll have my laptop with me if I'm taking a class. So I think it might be a personal preference. I think you would just have to talk to your professor before the class and just say, well, I need my laptop in class or not. Because I know some students are like, I need to have my laptop with me, and others might not necessarily. Are there any travel restrictions or rule that we must follow during? So you are free on your days off to do what you would like. However, IFSA does require that you tell us of any travel plans that you have for health and safety reasons. So for instance, I don't know if you've seen the news, but right now in France, there are a lot of protests happening. And obviously, we'd want to make sure that we know if you're in France right now, in case something were to happen in France. So yeah, you are allowed to travel on your time off. It's just a matter of you just letting us know if you're going to be away overnight from your normal residence. You just have to let us know that.
And is that info as simple as like location and just dates? Or is there more
Yeah.
information required? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's through the students portal, and you just go through there and you just, I think, say where you're staying. Like I'll be in Paris, and then I'll be in Paris on these days. One of the things with that, which I don't know if Peter or Kevin mentioned to you, but you're required to get a UK phone number while you're here. And what we'll do is, and also something called Alert Media. It's an app which allows us to send any messages to you in case something does come up. We can say like, hey, can you check in with us as to where you are? Just so that we know if we need to just check in with you very quickly.
And for context, the UK Sims, can be pretty cheap. Like you can get one for, I think, around like 10 or 20 pounds. And you can do the pay as you go. So you don't have to sign, like a big contract or something like that, just to have the phone number.
Yeah, my parents have come to visit me and they're like, can we get a UK Sim this time? And it's £10 for the month. And that includes unlimited calls and texts, and I think like 7 megabytes or gigabytes. I don't remember of data, whatever the normal amount is. So, but you can pay more if you want more data, obviously. Talk about money and how that all works. I think you're talking about the pound in general. So it depends. We definitely recommend that you don't carry a lot of cash with you. There's still some places that are trying to be cashless, particularly after COVID, but I think just to make things easier. So if you do have a card, we do recommend that you bring a card. Depending on what bank you work with, they might have it so that you don't have necessarily transaction fees when it comes to that. So definitely check with your bank. Let your bank know that you're traveling so they're not like, oh no, why is Angelica suddenly, and this must be fraud. So usually just giving them a call. They might have something online that you can let them know that you're traveling. But you can use a card with your US bank if you want, or you can obviously change into pounds with cash while you're here. You can't go to a bank here in the UK to change your money simply because you have to be a customer of that bank. However, there are a lot of different places that change money. Usually the best rates are at the post office or at a place called John Lewis, which is like a big department store. So those are the ones that do the best exchange rates I've found. Yes, your housing does include Wi-Fi. Be a dark, dark day when it didn't.
These are great questions, y'all. Thanks so
Yeah,
much. Are there any others? No worries if not. We just want to give you a chance, to ask anything.
I don't see any typing, so that's a good sign.
Well, if anyone has any questions, I know we have at least one person in here who has not yet, officially applied. So if you want to apply, please feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to work with you on that. I'm putting my email here in the chat. Always happy to talk about the program and our application process. We try to make as easy as possible. We're trying to get more students abroad and not put more obstacles in your way. So for these programs, our admissions process, I would say, is relatively pretty simple and straightforward. So you can always reach out to me if you have questions around admissions or academics. And then Kevin's the go-to in terms of, flights and visas and housing and sort of day of arrival and those kinds of topics. And if you have any questions specific, for the London staff, we're happy to field those, to reach out to them on your behalf. So we're not blowing up their inbox every single day.
We have students who are already here who do that for us, so it works out really well.
Well, thank you so much for putting this together, Nikki.
No, thank you for suggesting it. It's great to see what students are asking, what they want to know. I hope you guys got a better idea of what it's like here. I hope to see you either this summer or this fall. And I'll leave that though to Peter and Kevin to get you here so that then I can greet you in person.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody. And don't forget, you can also schedule appointments with Kevin or I through the student portal, or just reach out if none of the times work and we'll do our best to accommodate your schedule.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.